One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. Aaron Fitt of D1 Baseball is on One Question today. The NCAA Baseball Tournament Field of 64 was announced yesterday. And Aaron, let's start here. I'm curious of your view of what some head coaches, sport facilitators out there may view as a moving target when it comes to the committee selection criteria. We heard Scott Sidwell, San Francisco AD and committee chairman, yesterday say they looked heavily at out-of-conference strength of schedule, and the group next year that comes into place that selects the same field may look at other metrics in different levels of importance. So, how difficult do you see that being for, again, head coaches and their sport administrators to create a schedule year by year that gives their program the best opportunity at an at-large bid if they don't win their conference tournament? When things are moving around a bit according to what the committee deems most important?
It is difficult, and it is a moving target. And one of the things that's frustrating to me is even when he says that they looked at non-conference strength of schedule, and they cited that as the reason that Virginia didn't host. Then you look and somehow St. John's gets in the field with a non-conference strength of schedule up in the 250s or something, and Texas A&M, non-conference strength of schedule is I think 217. Somehow those teams still host over a team like Gonzaga, and the committee chairman said we kept Gonzaga out in part because they didn't do enough in the non-conference, and their non-conference schedule was a lot better than those teams. So I don't, sometimes it just doesn't make sense, and you wonder exactly what they're doing, to be honest with you. But, I think you got to try to build a strong schedule in the non-conference. I mean, that's the lesson here. If you're going to load up on gimmies early on, and Virginia has done that at times. There are years where they're playing these northern teams that just don't really have prayer, and then weekend series early on. And I think they made a little bit more of an effort this year. I mean, their schedule wasn't as bad maybe as it was ranked, but still, I just think you can't have those real complete pushovers. That's the lesson. If you try to schedule teams, especially as a power conference team, try to schedule teams, around the 100 range, even if it's 100 to 150. If you have teams at the bottom, if you're playing teams outside the top 200 or even lower, it really hurts you. It has disproportionate effect. I mean, that's I think the reason that Louisiana Lafayette didn't get in the tournament is because they had a few games against St. Peter's, and St. Peter's went winless. And so if 50% of the RPI formula is your opponent's record, if you play 3 or 4 games against a team that went 0-38, it just crushes you, which is, I think, a drawback of the system. I feel like, some of those weak RPI games that you have, every team should get a little bit of some leeway. I just think, cross off your 4 or 5 lowest RPI games out of everybody's schedule, so that if you get stuck playing somebody who just has a horrible year, it doesn't skew the way your entire body of work looks. But I've been saying that for years and nobody listens, so I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, interesting. So let me go on the other side of the coin here. And what if Scott or a committee chair, what if they came out and simply said, we looked at, and of course we hear this term commonly for the college football playoff, we look at an entire body of work, or we hear it with March Madness selections. We actually didn't specifically over-index or weight a specific metric any more than another. We simply looked at an entire body of work against the marketplace of other potential candidates who could have been an at-large selection. And this is where we ended. For you as a media member, one of the main media members who covers this space, if a committee chair came out and said that, would you say, come on, man, you've got to give us some more meat on the bone? Or would that be a better way to approach it?
Well, I do think that it's a good idea for the chairman to try to be specific when he defends their choices. And if I were the committee chairman, put me on the conference call. I can defend the picks that we made. You asked me about why we had Gonzaga in our final projected field of 64 and not Texas A&M. I can tell you, A&M lost 8 of their last 10 games of the regular season. Their non-conference strength schedule was 217. As an SEC team that's in the mid-40s in the RPI, that has fewer top 100 wins than Gonzaga has. When Gonzaga is in the West Coast Conference and geographically isolated up there in Spokane, Washington, it's a lot harder to do that. If you're Gonzaga, to finish in the 40s, just a couple of spots behind A&M in the RPI, and Gonzaga finished strong. They won their last two series against good teams. The two other really good teams in the league, in fact, BYU and LMU. Gonzaga finished by winning those series and sweeping BYU. They were co-champions in their conference, and I know it's not the SEC, but, I can tell you that's the reason why we picked Gonzaga. And don't give me some vanilla boilerplate about how, when we stacked them up against the other teams, we didn't feel they were as worthy as the other teams. That's crap. You can do better than that, Chairman.
And that's today's One Question, brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. One Question is designed to give D1 Ticker subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences. One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.